You know, when I did my Red Rising reviews, I said I kind of feel bad for the people who went to that series looking at the covers and thinking it was YA. Uh, Triple it for the Millennium Trilogy because holy crap, is this not YA?
An ordinary person might have felt that her lack of reaction had shifted the blame to her. It might have been another sign that she was so abnormal that even rape could evoke no adequate emotional response. Her circle of acquaintances was not large, and Elizabeth did not know a single girl who at some point had not been forced to perform some sort of sexual act against her will. Most of these assaults involved slightly older boyfriends who, using a certain amount of force, made sure that they had their way. As far as Salander knew, these incidents had led to a lot of crying and angry outbursts, but never to a police report. In her world, this was the natural order of things. As a girl, she was legal prey, especially if she was dressed in a worn black leather jacket and had pierced eyebrows, tattoos, and zero social status. There was no point in whimpering about it.
Hey, what's up, bookworms? Mike back again today to talk about a little girl with a dragon tattoo, the first of the Millennium Trilogy, actually published posthumously by Stieg Larsson. Yes, a little thing that I learned when I started researching a little bit about this book is that this series, while you may think it's super popular now, the man who wrote these books died before they were published. So all this wild success that this series had, he didn't get to see none of it. And it's really, really awkward to think that this series is still going on, written by someone else, and apparently by someone that his widow does not approve of. So I don't think I'll ever be getting past that. But I just want to talk today about the girl with the dragon tattoo, because I read this not about 2 months ago, and I just never really did a review for it because I thought at the time I was just going to read all three of them real fast, and then just kind of do a video for all three of them. But that didn't quite happen. I really, really did like this book quite a bit. I had seen both the American and the Swedish version of it on screen. I had obviously never read it before now. And wife had always been really pushing this one on me. I think that's kind of why I got the idea of the YA thing on it. And that was before I watched the movie. And obviously, watching the movie, yeah, this isn't YA. And I think it's just these covers kind of get mistook as YA. Plus, it seemed like a lot of the crowd that was reading Hunger Games and Twilight, when they grew up a little bit, they kind of moved on to this series. So I think it kind of fell in that crowd. But these are very, very adult-oriented books. It's really interesting to translate some of the Swedish in here that that has been kind of lost in translation, I guess I'd say, to America. Like apparently this book was called Men Who Hate Women. And if you know anything about this actual first book, there is a lot to back that up in this. Look, something I know I don't do on this channel very much is anything that steps outside of horror, fantasy, or science fiction. Obviously, I would put this under like a crime, detective, drama, maybe thriller. So obviously this is a kind of a first for the channel. Why I want to talk about it, and actually why I decided to read it, is, like I said, not just because of the recommendation. I really did like the movie. I really thought that it was a kind of a whodunit that had me guessing up until the final reveal. And even then I was like, well, was he working alone? That kind of thing. It was a really, really well done on film. But I mean, it was just as good, if not even better. Obviously, I think the book's always going to be better than a movie. But I really did like that Swedish version. Numi Rapace. And I think she's fantastic as Lisbeth. I really think that she really was pulled straight from the screen. Whereas I thought that do I got it backwards? Was Numi, or is it... Yeah, because Mara Rooney played her in the American version. Honestly, guys, I didn't care for the U.S. version. Maybe it's because I saw it second. I felt like if I hadn't watched that Swedish version the first time, I'm not sure I would have really followed that movie very well. And that's weird because I love David Fincher. So that's really weird to say, but I did prefer that one. It was also an extended version, so it feels like it had everything in the book that the U.S. version kind of cut out. But this is about the book, obviously here. Starts off really with a really good hook about a guy being sent these flowers once a year, that his missing niece had been giving him a flower before she just disappeared one day. She used to always give him a flower on his birthday, and he assumes that she has been murdered, and he thinks that her murderer is tormenting him every single year by sending him one of these flowers. And it's a very, very interesting premise to base this off of, because you got not just that, you got the story with Lisbeth over here, and you got the story with Mikkel Blomkvist over here. And the whole time, this first half of this book, you're wondering, how are these two going to meet up? Because I can't see any two characters coming from different worlds than these two. Lisbeth is a hacker. You think about when this was kind of written, was a time where we're all still not quite like Sandra Bullock's The Net or something like that, but we still thought the dark web and hackers and all that stuff. Yeah, that stuff still exists, but it is kind of a little over the top at times in this. I'm not a big computer expert IT guy, so I can't tell you how accurate some of that stuff is. If I sound foolish right now, that's on me. That's on me. To me, it sounded a little ridiculous, but again, never in a way that it took away from the character. And then you have Blomkvist, who is actually like a disgraced journalist, being sued for libel, and he's just kind of trying to get away from the industry that he's in, to kind of just get away from all that, to kind of get the pressure off of the Millennium. This is the magazine that he writes for. And so he takes the job from this guy whose niece went missing, who wants him to, he was an investigative journalist. You ain't going to be doing nothing right now. So he says, hey, I want you to investigate this because I'm on my deathbed, and I want one more time to try and find out what happened to my missing niece. And it's a very, very deep mystery, because this family is, they all live together like on this island, and you have all these suspects, and some are like, escaped Nazis and stuff. It gets crazy. It just gets crazy, crazy, crazy. And I really say I don't know how much was changed in translation, but Larsson, he has a really good prose. I was never bored reading this one time, and usually why I stay away from crime novels is because I feel like they get bored. They get too tied down on the forensics and stuff like that. And there is some of that, but never like, and now we're running the test sample, and now we're looking at the DNA strand. It never goes full CSI, and I really appreciated that. But the relationship that develops between Lisbeth and Blomkvist, you think of it as kind of like a father-daughter kind of thing. At least that's how I looked at it, because of their age difference. Obviously, it develops a little differently than that. But to me, never in a way that really felt uncomfortable. I felt like they bonded in a natural enough way that it was believable. People that have big age gaps fall in love all the time. It's fine. The heart wants what the heart wants. Or, other things want what the other things want. Sorry about that. There is one thing I forgot to add here, and I'm going to kind of insert this back in the middle of the video. I've been doing this a lot lately because I've been trying to do this more and more without notes, and sometimes it works well and sometimes it does not. I just want to just say, if you are easily disturbed by graphic content, you might want to stay away from this book, especially if, not that it's not a sensitive topic, but I'm just saying if you have a hard time reading stuff that is really, really brutal, namely rape, this might be too much for you to read. There is a rape sequence in this book that is so awful, and I was squirming myself reading it, and I'm a seasoned Joe Abercrombie fan, and it made me a little uncomfortable at some point. So I just wanted to give you that warning there. If you're taking this video as a recommendation or not, and I'm going to recommend the book for sure because I thought it was really, really great. If that's something that you really can't stomach, I might go ahead and hold off, because it's not really anything that you can kind of glide over. All I'll say is that the payoff's worth it. I mean, if you can say that about something like that. But let's just say that certain people get what's coming to them. Okay, so it'll go from being like something absolutely uncomfortable to something that you'll be fist pumping about. And I just want to kind of get that disclaimer in there. But now back to the video. But a really, really good detective story, I felt like, where even though I now knew what the ending was, I don't think I would have enjoyed it any less not knowing it, because it's so well written that you don't ever say, well, I know what's going to happen before it happens. Never. I never once feel like that. There's lots of clues and details and lots of Sherlock Holmesy kind of riddles kind of thing to figure out. Really cool stuff that I have to give credit to the guy for really thinking of it. It's a shame that this guy didn't get to bask in the glory, the success that this series had later. I know it's very big in America. I assume it was as big over in Sweden, where he was from. I can only assume. I have no idea. Sometimes there's things that I think are super popular here and they aren't overseas, and vice versa. So I don't really know what the legacy really this series is. I just know that for a while there, about a decade ago, I couldn't go anywhere without hearing about this series, and I'm kind of upset it took me this long to read it. So if the other two books in this trilogy are this good, I think I'm going to be in for quite a ride, because I really, really did enjoy this one. And now I'll be going into, I guess part 2 is called The Girl Who Played with Fire. And in the Swedish movie, they kind of tease what that one is about, what the title is about. They don't really touch on it in this book very much. So I kind of have an idea. But yeah, I have actually watched that movie. So I'm actually going to be surprised with these two because I don't know what's coming. So I'm very much looking forward to it. I don't know when I'll get to them just because my schedule just changes on the day to day. But I want to take a minute just to talk about this book because I really, really enjoyed it. And like I said, I'm not the James Patterson kind of... The only sci-fi, horror, and fantasy author that I'm sorry, the only guy who wrote stuff that was not falling under one of those categories that I ever read constantly was Michael Crichton. I think Michael Crichton is probably one of the most underrated American novelists of all time. Anything that guy put out in the 90s was gold. And I would eat those up. He's the only guy that kind of compared to Stephen King with me in the 90s. When every King novel come out, I'd be like, okay, well, what's Crichton going to counter with? And even though they weren't competitors, they weren't the same genre. It always just seemed like those two guys for me were always back and forth. And I'll do a thing about Michael Crichton one day because I don't think that everybody talks about Michael Crichton and gives him enough credit because that dude was a genius. Now that I've totally derailed this, getting back to this, this being the first not sci-fi horror fantasy book that I've read in a couple of years now, I really had a great time with it, and I'm hoping for more. So did you guys read this one? What did you think about it? Please drop in the comments, let me know below. Do not please talk about books 2 or 3 yet because I haven't read them. But if you want to say what you felt about the trilogy as a whole, I've heard a lot of people say they didn't like the 3rd book. That happens a lot in trilogies. A lot of people do not like the 3rd book usually. You look at me, I didn't like the last Hunger Games book, but who did? Anyway, sorry to keep bringing up Hunger Games all the time. I don't know why I do that, especially when this is not a YA series. Even though the covers are really cool, but it seems like only YA gets cool covers. That's not true. That's just a dumb thing to say. So guys, did you read it? Let me know. We'll talk to you in the comments.